Hey friends, welcome back. For today's class, we're going to use a Swiss ball, a strap or belt, 2 blocks, and a blanket or towel. So let's get started. So we'll move the props to the side and have your Swiss ball close by, but put it somewhere that it's not going to knock you in the head or be bumping into you until we need it. In today's class, we're going to be focusing on abdominal strengthening. We're going to be mainly working on the floor today, so have all of your props within reaching distance, and we'll get started on our backs. Come into a constructive rest position with your feet on the ground and your knees bent. Let your hands come to your belly and your elbows can just rest evenly on the floor. Bring your awareness into the center of your body. Start to deepen the breath and notice the movement of the belly underneath your fingertips. There are 3 layers of the abdominal muscles, and we'll be going through each of the different layers, working on how to find engagement through movement of those areas. Let your knees gently sway from right to left, allowing your pelvis to tilt from side to side. Bring your knees back through center and now take some pelvic tilts by letting your tailbone point up towards the ceiling, and notice how your low back presses into the earth. And then point your tailbone down towards the floor and notice how your low back arches away from the floor. So we'll just do that a couple of times, pointing the tailbone up, pressing the low back down, and then pointing the tailbone down, letting the low back arch. Notice how one allows the belly to lengthen and the other shortens the belly, the space between the hip bones and the ribs. So let your pelvis come back to whatever its natural position is. And just notice, whatever your natural position is there a space between the low spine and the floor, or is your low spine pressing into the floor? It's going to be different for all of us. So just have an idea of how your body lands against the floor right now. And then move back into your belly breath. So on the inhale, feel the belly lift and expand. And as you exhale, feel the belly soften. Take your fingertips to your hip bones. And then walk your fingertips in about 2 steps towards your pubic bone. And now let your fingertips take 1 step up towards the navel. So right now, your fingertips are about the center of the pelvic bowl on either side of the pubic bone, but slightly up from the pubic bone. Dig your fingers in really, really deep, and then cough or clear your throat. And notice a muscle that hardens underneath your fingertips. And you may have to do it a couple times to find it, or dig really deep to find it. And now relieve the tension of the fingertips in that area and breathe. Dig your fingertips in deep again. And now lift your thumbs up without moving the rest of your fingers. Lift your thumbs up and stretch your thumbs towards your lower ribs. It's still going to be on your belly, so the soft part of your belly, but right below the ribs. And now dig your thumbs in really deep, dig your fingers in really deep, and cough or clear your throat. And notice a muscle that hardens underneath your fingertips. This is the deepest layer of our abdominal muscles, the transverse abdominis. So it's just a big muscle that wraps around from the lower ribs to the pubic bone, the front of the body to the back of the body, to the lower lumbar. So one of the cues I like to use for engaging this muscle is thinking about it as a corset And so you tighten up that corset. So press your fingers in and see if you can harden the muscle, the transverse abdominis, that deep muscle. Hold that engagement, and now practice holding that engagement while breathing deeply still. So maybe the ribs and the chest expand more than the belly does this time. On your next inhale, soften the belly. Let the fingertips just rest on top of your belly. As you inhale, feel the belly lift and expand. And as you exhale, feel it depress. Inhale, lift and expand. And then exhale, dig your fingers in. Corset in that transverse abdominis. Hold. Find a nice steady breath. And now walk your feet a little bit closer together. Maintain the engagement of the transverse abdominis. Maintain your nice fluid breath. And now, without letting the pelvis tilt forward or back, lift the right leg up to a 90-degree angle from the hip with the foot flexed. Keep the core engaged, and now lift the left leg up. So now both legs are at a 90-degree angle coming out from the line of the hips. Your low back may have started to lift up off of the ground. See if you can corset that muscle in to try to press the low back down. So the tailbone is slightly lifted up. It's not pulling up, so we're not tensing out the low back. The pelvis is nice and even on the ground. Corset the belly in, breathe, and hold. See if you can maintain engagement of that muscle as well as a nice fluid breath. Keeping the engagement of the transverse abdominis, slowly take the right foot to the floor and then the left foot to the floor. Let your hands rest on your belly and find a nice deep belly breath. And now let your knees rock from side to side. Bring the knees back through center. Take your fingertips back to those points on the belly. Press them down. Corset the belly in. Feel your low back press down towards the floor. And now keep that. Breathe and lift your right leg up and your left leg up. Corset the belly down. And now grab onto your Swiss ball and pick that Swiss ball up towards the ceiling and place the Swiss ball on the front of the knees. Let your hands come shoulder width apart. Spread your palms nice and wide and just let your palms rest on that Swiss ball. Keep the feet flexed. Notice if the low back started arching up off the ground. Can you draw the belly in? Hold. Relax the front of the throat, the jaw, and the eyelids. Breathe. And now keep your right palm on the Swiss ball, but let your left arm reach overhead. And now keep your left knee to the Swiss ball, but let your right heel just tap the floor, corset the belly in, press the low back down, and return the limbs to the Swiss ball. And we're just going to alternate one side and the other. Keep corseting that belly in. And so now your right thumb and your left heel will touch the floor and return back to the Swiss ball. Corset the belly in, right heel, left thumb. Corset the belly in and return. Corset the belly in. Keep moving. Breathe. Keep pressing that belly down. One more time each side. Take your hands to either side of the Swiss ball, hold it towards the ceiling, and slowly let your feet come to the floor. Place the ball to the side. Take your hands back to your belly. Find a nice deep belly breath. And let your knees sway from right to left. Bring the legs back through center. Grab onto one of your blocks and place your block between the thighs. And breathe. The most superficial layer of the abdominals is the rectus abdominis. I think of it as like a big slug that goes from the right in the center of the belly, from the lower ribs to the pubic bone. And it's the muscle that when it contracts, it allows you to sit upright. So take your hands behind the back of your head. Let your hands interlace. And now lift your elbows up just high enough so that you can see them out of your peripheral vision. Take a nice deep inhale here. Notice the distance of your chin to your chest right now. So at no time do we want to hide the Adam's apple by bringing the chin to the chest. So your gaze is always going to be towards the ceiling. Take a nice deep inhale here. As you exhale, press the belly down and lift the head, chest, and shoulders up to the sky. So your gaze is still at the ceiling, not towards the knees. Lift your shoulder blades up a little bit higher off of the ground. And now let your head relax in your hands. Take a nice deep breath. Inhale. And then exhale, lift up a little bit higher. Think about your lower ribs pulling towards your hip bones without letting your head or your chin jet forward towards your knees. And then as you inhale, you'll slowly lower down. And right when your knuckles graze the floor, you'll exhale and draw the ribs towards the hip bones again. Lift the chest up, the shoulder blades up off the ground. Let the head relax. And breathe. Inhale, slowly lower down. Exhale, draw the ribs towards the hip bones. Lift the chest up, let your head relax. Inhale, slowly lower down. 3 more times. Exhale. Exhale out the mouth. Let the head relax, shoulder blades lift up. Inhale, slow release down without fully collapsing. And then exhale. Head relaxes. Slow release down. Exhale. Inhale, slow release down. And then last time, exhale. Slow inhale, replace the head to the floor. Take the block out from between the knees. Let the block just rest on the belly. Bring the bottoms of the feet together and the knees apart. Big, deep belly breath. Press your feet into each other. Bring the knees back together. Take your block back between your thighs. So the middle layer, the obliques are what allow us to twist. The obliques are what allows us to twist. So we're going to do some core twisting here. So interlace your hands behind the back of your head. Let your head relax into your hands. The neck's relaxed. Let your elbows lift up. Let your head relax. Take a nice deep inhale here. And as you exhale, engage the belly. Corset the belly in. And now lift your feet up. Bring your legs to a 90-degree angle. And breathe. Keep the core engaged, but take a nice inhale. And then as you exhale, lift your head, chest, and shoulders up like you're bringing the bottom ribs to the hip bones. The shoulder blades are lifted up off the ground. And now let your head relax. Point your elbows towards the left, outside of the left thigh. And now reach your right arm outside of that left thigh. Look up towards the ceiling. Let your head relax. Draw the belly in. See if you can lift that left shoulder blade up off of the ground. And now replace the right hand to the back of the head, squaring the shoulders out. And then as you exhale, you'll point your shoulders toward As you exhale, you'll point your elbows outside of the right thigh. Let your left arm reach. Let your head look up towards the ceiling. Relax in the right hand. And then exhale, lift that right shoulder blade up off the ground. Inhale, come back through center. And we'll do the other side. To the left. Let your head relax. Look up towards the ceiling. Lift a little higher. Replace the right hand behind the head. Square the shoulders out. And then point the elbows to the right. Let your left arm reach. Look up towards the ceiling. Lift the right shoulder blade up. Take your left hand behind the back of your head and slowly come down. Take your block out from between the legs. Take your feet to the floor. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees apart. And breathe. Press the feet into each other. Bring the knees together. Grab onto your strap. So we're going to be using our strap and our block for this next little sequence or series. For the next set, we'll be using our block and our strap. So grab onto those. Walk your feet in close to your butt. Draw the belly in. Lift the hips up towards the sky. Place the block underneath the back of the pelvis at the lowest level, and then let your pelvis come and rest on top of that block. And you might need to lift the tailbone up and point it up towards the knees and then rest it down so there's a little bit more length happening in the low back. When I get into this position, this supported bridge, sometimes I like to inchworm my upper body towards the top of the mat, so finding as much length in the spine as possible. And now grab onto your strap, draw your right knee into your chest, and take the strap around the bottom of the right foot. Let that right foot come to the sky. Even if you can bring that right leg closer to your body than the vertical position, we're just going to start in that vertical position. So right leg above the right hip, put some weight into the strap, lengthen the heel towards the ceiling. Breathe. If it feels appropriate for you, start to bring the right leg a little closer to the torso. Breathe. Maybe just a couple inches. And then a couple more inches. And maybe a few more. And breathe. With that right leg closer in towards the body, you're going to lift the left foot off the ground and then straighten the left leg to the wall beyond the bottom edge of your mat, keeping it hovering up off the ground. With that, you'll be able to find probably a little bit more space for that right leg to come closer to you. Keep that right leg close in towards the body, but reach through that left leg, point through the toes. Keep reaching through that left leg as far as you can, and then bend the knee just enough to let the heel graze the floor without letting that right leg move away from the torso. So you feel the whole front of that left hip flexor nice and long, and breathe. Let your right hand maintain the position of the right leg as you reach the left arm overhead. Nice deep breath. Let the strap start to slide through your fingertips as you let the right leg come back to a vertical position to the hip. The left hand will grab onto the strap just to give your right hand a break. And then slide your left foot to the floor, bending the left knee. Separate the straps. Place the left foot in the strap and take the right foot to the floor. So again, we'll start out with that left leg vertical to the hip. Reach the heel to the sky. And now start to bring the leg a little closer and breathe. And a little closer. And a little closer. Take a big deep breath here. And now bring the leg a little bit closer. Reach through the heel. Maintain the position of the left leg as you pick the right foot up, and then point the toes and reach that right leg long to the wall beyond the bottom of your mat. That'll give you some space to bring that left leg a little bit closer in, and now reach through the top of the right leg. Reach as far as you possibly can. Breathe. Keep reaching through the top of the right leg as far as you possibly can, and slowly start to bring the heel towards the floor. Maybe that right knee has to bend slightly to get it down. Feel the front of that right hip crease lengthen, and then take the right arm overhead and breathe. Keep sliding that right heel longer without letting that left leg switch positions or move positions. Big deep breath. And now let the strap start to slide through the fingertips as that left leg comes vertical to the hip. The right hand will grab onto the straps to let the left hand take a break. Slide the right foot to the floor. Take the strap off the left foot. Take the left foot to the floor. A supported bridge pose. Interlace your fingers and press your palms towards the ceiling. Press your palms and then snap the fingers away from each other. Let the arms come away from each other. Take your hands to the block underneath your pelvis, and you'll lift your pelvis up just high enough so that you can scooch the block down. So now it's going to be underneath the butt, not as much of the sacrum, but the butt. If it feels safe to do so, once it's in this position, you can take the right leg long and the left leg long. Maybe the heels come to either edge of the mat. So the block is lifting the butt and essentially the hip creases up towards the ceiling. So the low back is not in too much of an arch. It's nice and long. And then the arms can come overhead. And we'll take our big belly breath here. So inhale as you let the belly expand. Exhale as you let the body surrender to the support of the block and the floor. And just use your breath to do the deeper work. Bend your elbows, let your hands come to your belly. Elbows can rest on the floor. Slide your right foot to the floor and then your left foot to the floor. Walk your feet in closer to the block. Imagine you have a block between your knees and you're clamping that block between the knees. Walk your elbows in so they're still on the ground but really close to the body, so close to the body that you can lift your shoulder blades up and start to squeeze your shoulder blades together. And now take your hands down towards the block, draw the belly in, lift the hips up, clamp that imaginary block between your knees, let one of your hands grab onto the block and move the block out of the way, and then you'll point your fingertips towards the ceiling, bending the elbows. So clamp that imaginary block between the knees. And now lengthen, so press your knees towards the bottom of your mat. Find more length in the front of the body. Press your elbows down, get a little bit taller. Reach the knees away from you. Clamp that imaginary block. And then dig your heels into the floor. And breathe. With control, you'll slowly start to take your pelvis down towards the floor. Once the pelvis touches ground, let the shoulder blades slide away from each other, the elbows slide away from each other. Draw the right knee into the chest. Wrap your hands around the right knee. Extend the left leg long and breathe. As you inhale, take the right leg long. Take the arms overhead. Exhale, hug the left knee into the chest and hold and breathe. Inhale, extend the arms and legs. Exhale, right knee comes in. Inhale, extend arms and legs. Exhale, left knee. Inhale, extend arms and legs. Exhale, both knees. And just do a little rock from side to side. And now roll over onto one side and let's press ourselves up and come into a tabletop position. So you can take a blanket and place the blanket underneath your knees. And then come onto your hands and knees. And we'll find a couple rounds through cat and cow. So arch the spine, round the spine. And then maybe even take a couple barrel rolls of the ribs, letting the spine, the ribs move around in a circle, and then switch directions. Come back through center, come into your tabletop position. And you'll just walk your knees back slightly so they're not directly below the line of the hips. And your shoulders will come forward so they're right above your wrists. So we're setting up for a supported plank pose. So spread your fingertips nice and wide. Make sure that you're sending a lot of energy into your knuckles and your fingerprints. Let your tailbone gently point towards your heels. And now corset the belly in. The toes are tucked under. The toes are tucked under. And you'll slide your right toes to the back of the mat, lifting the right knee up off the ground. Let your tailbone point towards your knees. Draw the belly in. Press the floor away from you. Notice if your head is dropping down. See if you can keep your head in line with your spine. Tuck your right toes under and then lift your left knee up off the ground. Find your plank pose. Breathe. Press down through the knuckles. Corset the belly in. Press your tailbone towards your heels. Breathe. And now let your right knee come towards the floor without letting your hips wobble up or down. Maintain the engagement of the core. Take the left knee to the ground. Let your hips come back towards your heels. Turn your palms up. And we're going to do that one more time. So lift your hips up. Bring your hips forward so the knees are behind the line of your hips. Your shoulders are over your wrists. Press into your knuckles and their fingerprints. So you're using the strength of your hands, not just putting all of your body weight into the heel of the palm. Let your tailbone shift towards your heels. Corset the belly in. Tuck your left toes under and lift the left knee up without letting the hips wobble. Breathe. And now tuck your right toes and lift your right knee up. Corset the belly in, press the tailbone towards the heels, and now press the floor away from you with your hands. Breathe, hold. Let your left knee come towards the floor. Let your right knee come towards the floor. Untuck your toes, bring your hips back to your heels, turn your palms up. And then lift yourself onto your hands and knees. Move your blanket out of the way. And you'll come and lay on your right side with your forearm down to the ground. Your elbow is going to be right underneath your shoulder. And your fingertips are going to be facing the left edge of your mat, which your chest is also facing. Let your knees bend. And now take your left hand to your left hip and let your ribs, your right side of your ribs, just sink down towards the floor and sit in that right shoulder, which is not going to feel comfortable for the shoulder. So press your right hand down and lift yourself up out of that shoulder so you're not just sitting in it. And now take your left hand to your right ribs and plug your right ribs into the midline. So you're not bowing your ribs towards the floor. You're lifting those right ribs up towards the midline. So the left side of your body and the right side of your body are in the same length. Keep that, engage the core, and now take your left hand to the top of your right hand or wrist and breathe. And now press your left hand into your right hand, press your right forearm down and lift your hips up off the ground. You can either use your left hand to keep pressing down or take your left hand to your left hip. Keep the length on both sides. Maybe that left arm reaches towards the sky and hold. And now slowly take the hips down to the ground. Let your hands come to the floor and we'll come onto our belly in Superman pose. Let your arms come forward, palms down. Let your forehead come to the mat. And breathe. Lift your head, chest, and shoulders up. Slide your elbows back, finding your Sphinx pose. So the elbows are right underneath the shoulders. Press the pubic bone down. Draw the belly in. Press your palms down. And it's like you're pulling the floor back and dragging the torso forward. Press your palms down. Grow taller in the spine. Keep the pubic bone pressing down. Breathe. And then slowly lower the shoulders down and you'll turn to the other side. So laying on your left side, I'm going to flip over so I can stay facing you. So now your left forearm is on the ground, the elbows below the shoulder, the knees are bent, the hips are stacked. Sink down into the shoulder. I'm working with a shoulder injury, so I'm going to be modifying just a little bit. But so press the floor away from you with that left forearm. Let your right hand come to your left ribs and plug those ribs into the midline so you're evening out the length on either side. See if you can keep that, engage the core, take your right hand to the left wrist and press it down, and now lift the hips up without doming the top ribs. Keep those ribs nice and long, and then maybe your right arm comes towards the hip or the ceiling. Keep the core engaged. Keep those left ribs plugging in, the right ribs plugging in, and breathe. Hold. And then with control, bring your hips down, roll onto your belly, find your Sphinx pose again. Elbows underneath the shoulders. Press the palms down, press the pubic bone down. Grow taller in the spine, drag the torso forward. Lower the shoulders down slightly, bring your palms together. Let your elbows walk in slightly. Look down towards your thumbs. And now firmly press the ribs in towards the back body, like you're doming the upper back. And now firmly press the belly button into the back body. Lift the pubic bone up off the ground. Without peeking your butt towards the ceiling, lift your thighs up off the ground. Press the pinky side of your hands down. Press down so that you can lift up. Let the tailbone lengthen towards the heels. Draw the belly in and breathe. Relax the face. And then slowly let your thighs come down, pubic bone come down, belly softens. Let the arms come forward. Superman. Let everything go. Take your hands underneath your shoulders, lift yourself up and back. Take a child's pose. On the inhale, slide your heart forward and up, cow spine. As you exhale, downward dog. Bend the right knee, press the left heel towards the floor. Do a little hip sway. And then switch direction. So left knee bends, right heel presses towards the floor. Breathe. Bend both knees. Come forward into a plank pose. Come onto the top of the right foot. Let the hips start to move down, though they won't touch the floor. Come onto the top of the left foot, and then let your heart come forward and up. Press the floor away from you. Press your feet firmly into the floor. Breathe. And then come onto the tucked right toes and the tucked left toes, so you can pick your hips up again, downward dog. Big deep breath. Take the knees down to the ground, child's pose. Slide your hands to your knees so that you can lift your torso up. Grab onto your blanket from the shelf fold, and you'll fold it in half once, like so. And we'll come onto our backs. In your constructive rest, and we'll find our supported bridge again. So you'll take that blanket underneath your pelvis. Let your pelvis just rest flat on it. Let your feet step a little bit farther away from each other and a little farther away from the torso. So there's more of an open knee back, so it's not as closed of a back. So there's more of an opening in the back of the knee. Press your elbows into the floor and lift your chest up and your head up so that there's no stuck skin or hair pulling you in any one direction. Let your fingertips just tune into the movement of the belly as you breathe. And then unravel the arms, finding this version of Shavasana. And step your feet in closer to the body. Lift the hips up and slide the blanket out from under you, taking the hips back down to the ground. Let the knees gently sway. Try not to move aggressively, just really nice and easy and slow. Let the knees move from one side to the other. Come back through center, and we'll take some pelvic tilts again. Nice and easy, so nothing aggressive. We're not forcing or pulling, just a gentle rocking of the pelvis. The tailbone tilting down and then up. Little cat and cow movements are happening in the low back. And we'll come back through center. Hug the knees into the chest. Roll over onto your side. And bring yourself up into a seated position. You can sit on top of the blanket to get a little bit more lift of the spine and a nice position of the pelvis. Let your hands come to your knees. And just notice your awareness of your midline. On your next inhale, bring your palms together at the center of the forehead. And as you exhale, we'll bow to each other in gratitude for this practice. Rising back up, releasing the hands, and coming back to each other. Thank you so much. I hope that you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.